So before we start the committee meetings, I just wanted to touch base on a couple of things that have been going on so that everybody is aware and nobody feels left out or excluded. First and foremost, let's talk about communications from the council office. I want to make sure that we're all clear on what we should expect in our boxes and when, because there's been some concern about that. So on the first and third Tuesday of the month, the mayor's communication with all the backup, as we've been getting right along, will be emailed to all councilors upon receipt from the mayor's office, and a hard copy will be placed in your mailbox. That's normal course. All regular and special meeting motions and any other communications from the city clerk will be emailed and printed hard copy in your in your box. So you will get, for the meeting, all the committee motions coming before the council that night. All councilors will get that. That is a change. Second and fourth Tuesday of the month are our committee meetings, as you all know. All councilors will receive via email, as well as hard copy, all committee minutes from all committees, which is the big packet you received tonight. The committee chairs will continue, as we have, the face sheet with the supporting documentation from the mayor's communication for the committee votes that were assigned to your committee. You will get that as well. So everybody will get copies of the motions and the minutes for all council meetings going forward. Councilor Conti.
When we receive the mayor's communication, after the city clerk reads the mayor's communication, he often reads correspondence. Can councilors get copies of that correspondence?
So that's what I said. Other communications from the city clerk, which is what he calls them. That's the title of the document that he circulates. You will all get that.
Excellent.
That and the communications copies. So that when I say things like copies to other councilors, I made an assumption that everybody received that when in fact they didn't, unless they were directed to by the council president. So just so everybody has it. Secondly on my list, just very quickly, we are in the absolute final stages of a high school timeline. I met with the mayor this evening and he told me that he asked me to mention this tonight. So we are in the final stages of a high school timeline, including financing, and we should expect a communication from the mayor and the school committee on or before February 6th. And we should expect another communication from the mayor's office relative to his absence on the 29th and 30th. I will be the acting mayor the 29th and 30th, and Councilor Parika will be the acting president the 29th and 30th, just so you're all aware. And that's it for me. So we are at 7:03, and we have a guest for Personnel and Human Services. So she's going to go first.
I call the Personnel and Human Service Committee to order at 7:03. Committee members, Councilor Reynolds and Councilor Blair. From the docket of February 6, 2018, I entertain a motion to re-elect Deb Gould, 386 South Washington Street, North Attleboro, Massachusetts, to the position of City Auditor, term to expire February 2020.
Second.
I met with Deb on Friday, and I kind of asked her to please come to talk to us a little bit about her role. She has tons of experience. This is the third mayor that she's been with here in the city, so she's really done a great job. And so I just wanted everybody to be aware of what she does, and especially because there's a few new councilors, including myself. I thought it would be helpful to have her here.
Hi, good evening. Councilor Holmes and I met extensively on Friday afternoon and went over my role in the sort of municipal government here in Attleboro. Attleboro is a little bit unique in that I'm appointed by this legislative branch of government to my position, and I'm at the call of the administration by ordinance and charter. So I work closely with the administration in order to functionally achieve all of the things that any city accountant would do or town accountant would do. The title here in Attleboro is city auditor, but it's very similar to town accountants in towns throughout the Commonwealth. That being said, there's independence from the administration. I say no to the administration more often probably than all of my excuse me, other department heads combined, because it's part of my job to make sure that I represent the council and make sure that the will of the council relative to votes is actually what happens upstairs. So I've kind of done this a couple of different ways, but what I finalized was to sort of let you know the major responsibilities of the office. I'll give you some idea of the deadlines and timeframes, because some of the things that came out in the conversation with Councilor Holmes is there really isn't any downtime left in the accounting office. We start at the beginning of the fiscal year and we go straight through. I've been working with the City of Attleboro, not as city auditor, but I've been employed by the city since September 30th, 1996. I started under the Robbins administration. I worked throughout the 14 years of the Dumas administration, and now with Mayor Harrell, I'll work with that administration. But it's very different. The world is very different than it was 20 years ago. So in that, there's a lot of different reports that are required by the Commonwealth. A lot of GASB standards have changed. I know that GASB is Governmental Accounting Standards Boards. In 2004, one of the biggest changes happened, and that was GASB 34. We're approaching GASB 77 for implementation, so that just kind of gives you a perspective on how many standards there are that we have to adhere to in the governmental accounting world. In addition to having an annual outside audit, I think it's important for your honorable body and the folks at home to know that we, in my office, we regularly report things to the Department of Revenue. So there's a lot of actual oversight to the independent office of the city auditor from the administration. We work with the administration. I certainly answer to the administration in some capacity. I answer to the council. When I say I answer to the administration, it's in general direction. I have to take general direction from the administration. I'm available to the call of the mayor for matters that pertain to my office. But if I had a problem with the administration, certainly I would let the administration know, but if it was fleeted up to the point where it's a problem that this body needs to know, the letters would go out to all of you. More often than not, over the course of 20 years, it was a conversation that I had with your leadership, whether it was the president or vice president. And that, I mean, Mark's been president since January 2nd, and he gets regular phone calls or updates or emails to say, this is what's going on if you have any questions or concerns. My office is also available to all of you as a resource. You'll get an idea of what we do in just a minute, but if there's questions that we can help you answer, we're here for you. Not only myself, but I have 4 people that work in the accounting department that are direct reports to me. They're wonderful staff people for the city of Attleboro. They're very capable. If there's anything anybody can do to help you, all you have to do is reach out to us, either by phone or by email. I don't do social media. So I'm not going to be on Facebook. I don't do the business of the city on Facebook. I don't Twitter. I don't tweet. None of that is a way to communicate with me because it's not going to happen. Certainly, I will take your emails. If you don't have my cell phone, I'm happy to give you my cell phone number quietly, not on camera, so that I don't get calls. But we're a resource that's available to the council, and in a variety of things, not necessarily just the general ledger and financial, but so much goes through the office, you'll have a better idea of what we might be able to help you with in a minute, okay? So I'm gonna run through the list, and if you have questions, you're welcome to interject or wait till the end, but they all know I can talk a lot, so I tried to narrow the scope. So the major responsibilities of the office is we maintain the general ledger, which means we open and close the books. And one of the key pieces to that, as it relates to you, is we record all votes of the municipal council into the general ledger. So when you vote an appropriation, we're the ones recording that to make sure that the budget is there, that it's available, and all of that good stuff for the people to spend in the city. We complete the balance sheet package for the submission to the Department of Revenue. That balance sheet package is the basis for the certification of free cash and retained earnings. In this city, that package is always going to be submitted at this point after September 30th. That has to do with the accruals. Typically, we accrue all the revenue that we're supposed to so that we're reporting revenue on the right basis of accounting. And we have until September 30th for somebody, whatever agency that is, federal or state or private, to send us the money. If we were to submit before that money is received, there would be an adverse impact to the city's free cash. So we're always going to wait until September 30th for that to be submitted. Or actually later, okay? If all the revenues came in, we would submit early, but it hasn't happened in all the years that we've been doing that. There's a snow and ice data report that's required to the Department of Revenue that has to be submitted by September 15th. We review and sign off on the end-of-year report. The due date for that for the school department is September 30th. We provide some information that is input on the Schedule 19 from the city's perspective, expenses that the city bears on behalf of the school, and then we'll look over what the school has included in the submission of the report for accuracy. Excuse me. The statement of indebtedness is a report relative to all debt in the city of Attleboro. We compare the records for the general ledger, and we work on that report with the Office of the City Treasurer. Again, that report is due to the Department of Revenue by September 30th. A cash reconciliation report, there's a separate annual submission required to the Department of Revenue that happens by September 30th for the June 30th deadline. That report is also done quarterly, officially between the Treasurer's Office and the Office of the City Auditor. Just so you know, cash is balanced every month. Every single month in the city of Attleboro, cash is balanced. So that's something that has happened since before I got here. That was something that we knew. I knew the books of the city of Attleboro the day I started were okay because cash was in balance. So that's a really big deal. We complete the Schedule A for submission to the Department of Revenue, which is for the end of November. The Schedule A is a summary report of all revenues and expenditures of the city of Attleboro, whether it's general fund, enterprise fund, grants, trust funds, donation accounts, city, school, everything is included in that report. We participate in the tax recap, which the work on the tax recap starts pretty much on August 1st because, as Councilor Conti can tell you, I have to report to the Board of Assessors the local receipts for the previous year on and before August 1st for inclusion into the recap. That process is somewhat lengthy in that it typically goes through the end of November. This honorable body will be asked to do the classification hearings and the votes and that kind of stuff. The goal is going to always be to have that wrapped up by the end of November so that we can get our tax rate finished, finalized, and the tax bills for the fiscal year out the door by the December 31st deadline. And, you know, there's a lot of offices that are involved in a lot of this stuff. That one in particular involves this honorable body as well as the MIS department, the Office of the City Assessor, the Collector's Office is very involved in that. So there's a lot of different offices that are involved in that. The financial statement audit typically begins in the first week in January, runs through March. The auditors are on site. They will complete the financial statement audit as well as the single audit, which is of the grants, the federal grants. They also provide a management letter. All of you will get copies of all three documents. The financial statement and the single audit is posted on the city's website. The federal clearinghouse filing deadline for that is the end of March. Our goal is always to have it done in the middle of March. That involves the outside audit team being here on site. They go through the entire general ledger. Obviously, there's what's material, what's not material. They're more likely to look at a really big invoice than a really small invoice, but the entire books of the city of Attleboro are audited annually, every year, without fail. If there is a problem, if there's a recommendation of whatever it is that the outside audit firm says, you'll all be made aware of that because you get a copy of that document. The administration obviously is also made aware of that. That service is contracted through my office. We also participate in the GASB reports, which most of those reports are required information for the financial statement audit. So other post-employment benefits, that report is coordinated through my office so that the information is available for inclusion into the financial statements. The measurement dates for the retirement assets, there's new GASB standards for that. Those have been moved into my office for coordination. On a go-forward basis, the retirement board, I'm ex officio of the retirement board. I'm the ex officio member of the retirement board. There's 5 members. I'm ex officio, 2 are elected. 1 is appointed by the administration. The 5th member is elected by the other 4 members and cannot be a member of the system. So some of the reports that are needed that are retirement related, I have a peripheral participation in that as ex officio. Some of them are because I'm the one that needs them for the financial statements, but those types of things are coordinated through the office. One of the other bigger things that we help sort of navigate on an annual basis is we have some participation with the Health Insurance Trust Fund relative to the setting of rates, discussions on subsidies. We have a lot of very specific journal entries that we're required to book, incurred but not reported reports, things that things that we have to do to make sure that we're on the right basis of accounting so that we have a fair and accurate sort of global understanding of how much money is in the Health Insurance Trust Fund. Some of you have been around long enough to know how important the self-insured trust fund really is. Relative to how much money we actually have in it. As I said earlier, we're at the call of the mayor and to counselors to answer questions with matters related to the office. To give you an idea of what we do in the office relative to invoices processed or purchase orders, all city purchase orders, non-school purchase orders, I sign them. I sign all the purchase orders on the city side of government for the entire city. Those are for purchase orders greater than $500 or greater. If it's $5,000, $5 million, $500. I have to sign that. That comes across my desk. In fiscal 2017, there were 2,059 purchase orders entered into the Munis system. To date, in fiscal 2018, there's been 1,259 of those. For your information, on the school department, purchase orders, so in fiscal 2017, they entered 2,510 purchase orders. So far, year to date in fiscal 2018, 1,323. I only sign off on school purchase orders electronically for those that are greater than $5,000. The physical purchase orders come over here for signature by myself and the mayor for purchase orders that are greater than $25,000. What I look at when I'm looking at a purchase order, obviously I'm certifying the availability of funds. That's the primary function of my office, to make sure there's money behind the purchase order. In theory, if everything's going well and Munis is working properly and everybody's doing their job, the purchase order can't hit my desk unless there's money in the account, because the computer system theoretically would have stopped them beforehand. During a brief period of time between the time that we close the books and open the books, there are things that get to override the system in order to functionally continue because the new books haven't been opened. So in that case, we're manually looking up the account to make sure everything's okay before we send it along. Other things that I look at when I'm looking at a purchase order, if it's a service to the city, is the service subject to prevailing wage? Has it made it past the procurement people throughout the city to say, you know, prevailing wage has been looked at, that the prevailing wage information, at least it's noted on the purchase order, bless you, so that I know that they've done it. Certificate of insurances, are those there? Is the account number that's being used is an appropriate use of the funds? You don't get to buy a car out of an account that's for office supplies. Really bad example, but you get the point. Like, we're looking to make sure that the purchase is within the intent of the appropriation by the municipal council. We also are looking at, for purchase orders, if the dollar amount of the item being purchased had to be procured under 30B, is it 3039M, Chapter 149, 149A, which are all procurement statutes. I don't do this all by myself. I will randomly ask, I want to see what was published in Combis for this. I want to see, the ad in the newspaper. The longer the other employee and I have worked together, typically the greater the level of confidence in that they're doing whatever it is that needs to get done is happening. So yes, random checks are done by me. The outside audit firm is also going to check, but we're checking through the process to make sure everything looks like it's lawful, because I'm not allowed to make a payment on a warrant unless it's lawful. So that kind of happens throughout the process. And if we can't find it, we say no until we get the information. So it's not unheard of for something to sit in the office of the city auditor for a prolonged period of time until I get the answer that I either satisfies the question or whatever it is gets rejected because there was never satisfaction made. You know what I mean? Like, so it just waits. And it could wait for a really long time some days, months. I mean, it is what it is. People understand that I have to stop it. I can't sign it just because they want me to. Those were purchase orders. All city vendor contracts are signed by the city auditor, certifying the availability of funds. So if I'm going to sign a contract, there should be a purchase order that matches up to it. It's the only way I know how, and I don't certify the same amount of money twice. So the contract might come in, that will wait until the purchase order might be there, the contract will wait. Those are the types of things that happen relative to purchases. We process all of the invoices on warrants in the city. The school department keys their own invoices in at the school department. All of the city all the city invoices are keyed in on the city side of government. Even the invoices that the school department keys in, the big pile comes over to the office, and somebody in my office goes through every single invoice. Make sure we didn't pay sales tax. Make sure that, they have a purchase order that matches up to it. That kind of stuff happens. Is the grant, is there money in the grant? Have they overspent the grant? The term of the grant ended on June 30th. They can't spend this money after June 30th. All of that happens as a part of the process that warrants go through the office. In fiscal 2017, there were 305 payable warrants were completed in the office. Approximately 27,600 invoices came through. So far in fiscal 2018, 174 warrants have been completed and approximately 13,020 invoices have been paid. Payroll warrants also come through the office. In fiscal 2017, 228 payroll warrants were processed. So far in fiscal 2018, 106 payroll warrants have been processed. Payroll is processed in-house by the City of Attleboro. The school department has people that produce the warrants on their side. The city side, the treasurer's office produces the in-house payroll for the payment of all of the employees. My office makes sure that the money is there. Once a year at a minimum, we randomly will pull a payroll and trace every person on that payroll back to a source document. If you're paid and you're in a union, we go back to the union contract and make sure if on the payroll you're grade 35 step 3, that you're getting paid at a grade 35 step 3. So that's done at a minimum once a year. My staff goes through the payrolls, and I mean, a lot of payrolls are pretty ordinary in nature that I get paid the same amount of money every week. So you can see that there isn't a transition and that things look like they're going along. If there's something unusual, it'll get brought to my attention. We'll pull the source document. Is there something going on? Did somebody leave? Why is there an earned time payment? All of that kind of stuff happens in the office of the city auditor and in the accounting office. The 5 of us work together to make sure all of this is achieved so that we have some assurance that everything is being paid consistent with what a contract says it should be. In addition to the invoice processing, purchase orders, contracts, and those approvals, all revenue records and postings in the city are reviewed in the office. So the 2 major offices that post revenue to the general ledger is the Office of the City Collector and the Office of the City Treasurer. So if you're depositing money with the City Treasurer, and when I say you, it's any agent of the City of Attleboro, school, recreation, inspection, police, you name it, it comes through that office with the exception of the tax bills and the stuff that the collector's office is responsible for. There's a piece of paper that crosses somebody's desk in my office, and it's looked at to say, does this go to this account? Does this make sense? If it doesn't make sense, they'll bring it to my attention. We'll do follow-up. If we can't determine that this is really where the money should go, we'll hold it. We won't hold the deposit because the money's already in the bank, but we'll hold it into a different account until we can identify where it is so nobody goes out and spends money that they shouldn't, right? Because a lot of money comes into revolving funds. So all of that kind of stuff happens in the office. Multiple transactions. I mean, thousands and thousands of revenue transactions happen in this city every day. All requests for employee reimbursements come through the office. Verification to collective bargaining agreements, personnel rules and regulations, that kind of stuff takes place in the process. That is for both city and school. So all of the employees in the school department, if you're getting reimbursed for going to a class for your master's degree, if you're a teacher, we pull the teacher's contract. Okay, this is how much money they're allowed to take. We look at the source documentation provided by the school, make sure that the superintendent or the assistant superintendent has signed off on it, the grade is there, the class was pre-approved, all of that kind of stuff happens in the office. We sign off on it, school goes back to the school, the mayor's office signs off on the city side, okay? He does not sign off on the reimbursements for school employees. In addition to that type of stuff that we do regularly on a monthly basis, as I said earlier, cash is reconciled to the Office of the City Treasurer. We also monthly reconcile and balance all the receivables in the city, which, just to give you some examples, the ambulance receivable, the police detail receivable, real estate, personal property, motor vehicle excise, the rubbish, the tax title, the tax foreclosure, the water, the sewer, the pipe and labor, the supplemental real estate, all of that stuff is reviewed monthly in the office to make sure that the list of who owes us money for real estate taxes matches the general ledger. Okay, so that kind of stuff happens. All grants go through the office. All grants are established in the general ledger. Final reports are reviewed. The requests for drawdown come through the office to make sure that it meets the criteria for the grant. All of that kind of stuff happens in the office. And that's all I wrote down.
That's all?
That's it. That's all I wrote down.
So,
Yes, sir.
the reason why you're here is because last Friday I was having a meeting with the mayor, and my wife walked in on the meeting and says, you know, you have to reappoint the auditor. And we both said, what? The rest is history. I've been working with you for 8 years, and you've taught me how to read the audits, which was really painful. And you helped me with revolving funds, and we still have a lot of work to do in revolving funds. You've helped me with the electrical usage across the city departments, which was a really big help. Every time I've called your office, it is a joy to not get a brick wall, rather a very welcoming, I'm so happy you're asking the question, this is how it works, and a full explanation. I can't imagine better support from the city municipal council than what comes from your office. It's really top notch. And I know the council's going to reappoint you, and I'm thrilled to have you in our service, because I think you're doing a great job, and that concludes my comments.
Thank you, Chairperson Holmes. I think we all knew that she needed to be reappointed, and it's one of the things that I look forward to. With the millions of things that you just listed off, there has never been a time that I've walked into your office where you haven't had a moment to address whatever my concerns are. So I'm forever grateful for that. And whoever was smart enough to hire you 20 years, we should applaud them, because that you're a terrific resource here for all of us, and you do a phenomenal job. And you sometimes when you talk to me, it's like a different language that I don't understand, and you figure out a way to make me understand things that sometimes I struggle with. So I appreciate that, and I can't wait to be able to say yes for your reappointment.
Thank you.
I don't want to belabor the point, but just to add to both, we've met after hours because you're accommodating to our work schedules, which I think is outstanding. You've never said no. You know, heck, I sent you an email, hey, am I right on thinking on this? And you're like, well, kind of, but here's really what it is. And just that support and the institutional knowledge, you're an amazing partner to this council. And I know you've certainly helped make my job a lot easier. So I look forward to saying yes as well.
All right, thank you. Thanks.
Thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it.
Question. So, Deb, I agree with everything everyone has said, but what I think could you just explain to the council what the process is to cover in your absence if you're out of town on vacation?
Thank you.
So they're all aware. Thank you.
Actually, we had talked about that Friday, and I forgot. So, by statute, in my absence, if it's a planned absence, what happens in advance is I will appoint Liz Black in my office as the assistant city auditor officially, and that affords her the legal authority to sign the warrants, to sign purchase orders, to sign contracts, to sign whatever it is that I would need to sign in my absence, in my absence to be signed. That process requires me to do the appointment and the mayor to approve it. Upon approval of the mayor, she becomes the assistant city auditor and can sign that. So occasionally, when I go on a planned vacation, I limit, if I feel there's the need to do so, I would limit, she's been told she can't sign something to do with a particular project or whatever it is without that document specifically getting to me, so that I have an opportunity to review it if I think it's warranted. Listen, honestly, if something were to happen to me unexpected, Liz would get you through the interim for whatever it was. I mean, I truly have the best staff at City Hall. I know everybody says their staff is the best, but mine is really. And our goal, I mean, contrary to popular opinion from my colleagues throughout the city, I say no a lot, okay, to people. But my goal isn't to make their life miserable. It's to conduct the business of the city lawfully in the way we're supposed to do it. So I might tell them, no, you can't do X, but this is how we can achieve it. And oftentimes it means you have to come down here, but that's okay with me. That's, it is what it is. You have to go see the municipal council to get that done. So, sometimes you'll see a lot more comes down here that you might be like, really? Why is she sending them back downstairs to change it from a diesel truck to a gasoline truck? Because you said they could buy a gasoline truck, that's what they get to buy. If they don't get to buy the diesel. You know what I mean? So some of that stuff happens, and that's my fault. Would be a fault for whatever, but that's what happens when I'm gone.
Thank you.
And yeah, there hasn't been a time where I wasn't able to do the letter in advance of me leaving. I had like an emergency situation, but I was still able to do that. I honestly don't. The one person you could never appoint to fill in as auditor in my absence would be the city treasurer. There was a city auditor that died in office, and when that happened and there wasn't an assistant and they needed to act, it was the city clerk that they did an immediate appointment of to continue to conduct the business of the city, and then to continue. My recommendation, if I were to get hit by a bus tomorrow and you needed just to appoint somebody to get you through, it would be Liz Black. So you could do whatever you want because I wouldn't be here, but I would suggest strongly.
Can we knock on something? Like, could you not? Because we can't have that.
Right, but I'm just saying. I mean, you know what? I'm sort of the realist at this point in my life.
Stay away from GATRA.
I know. No. Yes, they're buses. I got it. Okay, so really, our goal is to help. I appreciate the kind words. I do enjoy my job. I would like to be reappointed to it. I mean, it's not dull. I mean, there's something different every day. Some things that I don't get to. I have some things that are outstanding that I owe some of you. I mean, I haven't forgotten you. It's just crazy. So.
Thank you again for coming. Really
Thank you.
appreciate it.
What's that?
Thank you.
Okay. Have a great night, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Deb.
Thanks, Deb.
So there's no other questions. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, sorry.
Aye. Okay, motion passes. That's okay. Let's see here. From the docket of February 6, 2018, I entertain a motion to confirm the appointments of Paul Hero and Councilor President Mark Cooper as representatives of the city on Sturry Memorial Hospital Board of Managers, term to expire December 2019.
Second.
Okay, any questions about that? I think we had mentioned it was, March 3rd, 1915, that this, bless you, was something that the city's been doing, so.
Councilor Holmes, this was to appoint the mayor and the president to the Sturdy Memorial Board.
Board of Managers.
Yeah, I couldn't quite hear everything you said.
Sturry Memorial Hospital Board of Managers.
When that vote comes onto the floor, I will need to excuse myself.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions about that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. I entertain a motion to transfer $1,500 from account park salary and wages to account park professional services regarding the need for funds to add a second porta-john on Cape and Park property.
Point of order. Sorry, Diana, you do need to read the account numbers now. You can skip the account number reading in front of the full council.
I'm sorry.
But right now you need to read
Okay.
those numbers.
So, sorry about that, thank
No,
you.
you're fine.
So I entertain a motion to transfer $1,500 from account 1650100511000 park salary and wages to account 16501005310 010 park services, park professional services regarding the need for funds to add a second porta-john on Cape and Park property, and add the geese police services at Judith Robbins Park.
Second.
Everybody received a letter. I don't really think that are there any questions about this? Yes.
No questions, just a comment. As most of you know, I spend my entire summer at Cape and Park on Saturday mornings, and in a particular way. And the addition of that second porta-john throughout the entire week was very, very. I know that there's a cost involved, but being that there are no public restrooms at Capron Park, and the kids play at the park all summer long, it was well needed. It was something that's been needed for a long time. So I will be supporting the funds to pay for that and look forward to having them bringing it back next year.
Just a question of curiosity. Are the geese police dogs?
Yes. Sure.
That's all right. I didn't know if you knew.
No, I
Because I
didn't.
remember reading about it before, and I wasn't sure.
I can help you out.
So I was just curious.
I just have to be recognized.
Trained border collie to chase the geese off the facility. That's funny. I mean, I thought I was doing like personnel and human services, not like dealing with border. No.
That's a human service.
So if I may, that was a pilot program that they brought in. Dennis Walsh brought that in to work over at Finberg Field.
Yeah.
And then they've expanded it to other places. And I actually, when I'm walking my dogs, I've run into them, and it's the coolest thing to watch. And so it chases the geese away for a few months, and then they go about their business, and then the geese come back, and they bring because they rotate the dog to different parks in the city. It's pretty cool to watch if you get to see it. So yes, border collies, they're made for it.
Just another comment. Whenever the geese police comes up, it seems to kind of start a stir. And I think Dennis needs to be recognized for the financial management of his department, because he's able to transfer amongst accounts. So everyone's like, oh, we're taking more money and da-da-da. This is Dennis's money, where he does a great job with really keeping the parks and really keeping an eye on the bottom line of the city. So kudos to Dennis and his entire department.
Thank you. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. From the docket of February 6, 2018, the mayor respectfully submits a communication from Personnel Director Owen Bebo regarding 2 changes to the current approved rules and regulations for the city's exempt group. The first would be an amendment to address the way sick leave is charged, and the second would add Article 22, sick leave bank. The article provides for establishment of a sick leave bank for exempt employees as it exists for other employees. Therefore, the mayor hereby requests your honorable body to approve the request changes to rules and regulations for the city's exempt group. So, sorry, who seconded that? Second. Thank you. This is, Owen is hoping to make the same thing for non-exempt employees as it is for exempt employees. So non-exempt are able to take half an hour sick leave. So if they have a dentist appointment and they need 2.5 hours, they can do that. Whereas an exempt employee would have to take 3 hours, because it's really just making it even across the board. Also, non-exempt employees are allowed to add to the sick bank for sick leave, and exempt employees are not. So this means that if somebody gets a diagnosis that obviously they don't want to have, they're not able to really either donate to this bank or use the bank. So it's really to just make that a little bit more even, so it would be the same. Everybody did get a letter about that. Any questions? No? All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Motion passes. To adjourn the meeting?
Take a motion. Make a motion.
I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Okay, 7:38. Thank you.
Meeting is adjourned.
Meeting is adjourned at 7:38.
Thank you. Good job. Okay, so I'm going to call to order the Ordinance Elections and Legislative Committee Matters, or Legislative Matters Committee, excuse me, at 7:30, looks like 37 or 38, 7:38. Let's say
39.
I got 38. We're good with 38. We'll give it a second. And I don't have anything to bring forward today, but I just wanted to give an update. There's a lot of things going on, so I wanted to give a sort of my plan for the future in terms of some of the things that I've done, and hopefully I can continue to give updates on them, because ordinance oftentimes do have a lot of investigations that you have to go talk to, and I appreciate that being brought up before. So I did. And the first one I want to discuss is the communication from Linda Blodge at 21 Prospect Street, granting permission to use the dog park with their own lighting One of the things I need to do is I need to speak to the chief of police. I did speak to Dennis Walsh, and now I'll have to speak with Mr. Corsi. From what I understand, a little background that I know of this, and I have to validate this with Butch Kiefer, apparently there were individuals that were usually lighting up the dog park on their own. Okay, so that's what this is a result of. So before I say more, I'm going to go talk to Butch Kiefer and find out what the situation was. And then obviously, we could vote on this at some point in time, but I just need to find out what the situation was, so.
Thank you for the update on that. I actually bumped into Butch and had a conversation with him about this, but you have your own conversation with him.
No, that's okay.
So my only concern with regards to that is that every other park in the city is dusk to dawn.
Yes. No.
Yep, dusk to dawn. I had to do it.
Yeah, we're not.
Or they're open from dawn to dusk. Let's put it that way, or it's closed. So that. I have some reservations as it pertains to that. Like, we've been very restrictive to people who want to walk their dogs at Capron Park at 4:30 on a Tuesday afternoon in the middle of winter because it's already dark and they're not actually allowed to be there. So
here's the thing. There's no motion yet. Okay. I'm just giving you. So when we make the motion,
beautiful.
I expect to hear that.
Okay.
And I agree wholeheartely, but we don't have a motion yet. I'm just giving you an update.
Okay.
Yes.
I would just ask you, Jules, when you speak to them, what kind of a liability it might be to the city. Thank you.
Absolutely, because all of that's going to come down to why we have a dusk to dawn, if you would. Yes.
And the other thing that you may want to reference is there was a special committee for the dog park that was established when we established the dog park to talk about these things, and I'm interested in what was discussed at that time to come up with the time frame, and was there any sort of rules governing the use of it at that time. So we should just reference that.
Perfect. And then I agree 100%. When the motion comes up, that's some of that. So I will have all of that sort of laid out, but that's my story on that one. So the next one, I'll drop down to the annual senior exemption for those meeting income and savings requirement to be raised from $600 to $1,000. I want to find out a little bit about the program itself and what are the collateral. I always like to talk about whether the collateral damage, if you would, I don't mean that in a bad way, but just there's sometimes collateral effects from some of these decisions we make, and I'd like to start back first for the people that manage the program and then move my way forward to start costing some things. So I want to make sure that whatever we put in place that sounds great, dollar-wise, doesn't affect someone at the end of the the end of the tail negatively, that's saying, hey, that's all great and fine and dandy, but we don't have the people to do it, or here's what we would need to do it. So when I do bring it forward, I will be able to say, okay, sounds like a great idea, but, and be able to fill in those details for you. The other thing was kind of, as I just heard and put down a little note with Deb, was the timing. When we do this, if we do it, we might have to talk about too, because, we could throw something out of whack in the middle of the year. So we'd have to talk about timing also. So, Mr. Conti?
We're in the period right now where senior statute exemptions are being filed and being reviewed by the Board of Assessors. This measure, the $400 difference, is reimbursed by the state, you're going to learn, about 76%, I believe. And it doesn't add to the burden of the city workers in the assessors department, but it does bring a big benefit to the seniors. So it's too late for us to have this in effect for the actual bills that just went out on January 1st. But it is possible for us to enact this ordinance so that it would be in effect for next year by January 1st. And so you've got time on this one. You've got some other things here that are pretty urgent and hot, and you've got a big workload. The one thing though that's critical to this senior statute exemption is that there's a vote coming up on the school bond, and this plays a very big role in that vote. So for that reasons, I'm going to ask you to please try to get a substantial amount of work done on this so that you can make a recommendation by the end of March.
So if I will continue my So I have talked to Madeline McNeely, and I am sitting down to make an appointment with Sue Arugio. I've also talked to Madeline about somebody I can speak to directly at Department of Revenue, and she gave me a name, and I will be speaking with that person. Myself and President Cooper met someone at Mass Municipal Association, whose card I got that we spoke about this. She said to call. So I'm lining up my resources, if you would, and because I am also one of the things that I was doing with the school, we do have a presentation coming up shortly with the school, with the seniors, and I'm on that committee to help them. And one of the things we're also looking at is not just tax exemption, but a list of opportunities that might be available to help lessen the impact on seniors. So there's a whole, if you would, package that's going to be put together. And so, yeah, there's a lot of work. So in all of that, I will find out that. So I do appreciate your comments. And I just wanted everybody to get sort of a, I don't know how quickly I can do it, but just get a feeling it's on my radar screen. So.
Jules, I love the fact you're talking to everyone. Just for your information as well, if you remember in December, when I chaired the committee, I asked the city assessor to come down. So you may want, I believe it was, I would say it was probably the 19th, maybe the 12th. The 12th of December, he came down, talked about the senior exemption, also talked about the, not to jump around, but the personal property tax as well.
Yep. Yeah, there is a number of new programs that I've been reviewing, and also Madeline and then Darlene and Marion have given me some things to look at on their behalf also. So I think when you talk about this, what's going on, as you suggested with the school, it is very comprehensive, and there's really a lot more than we can just do with just other than the exemptions also. So I want to be able to kind of give a complete package, but I appreciate that because I will be looking at the cost. One of the things I say in my head is, you know, there's got to be a cost to this, and then where does that get absorbed? Even if it's a small cost, we still need to know where it's going to get absorbed in what other account. So I'll find that out. Okay. Let's see. The commercial industrial classification accounts with personal property, again, I just need to get a breakdown from Stan on what the dollars are involved, any cost savings due to savings administrative time, which he does bring up that it does save administrative time. And so just to kind of see after that, where will the cost of lost revenue, if any, be shifted to? Again, if we're going to change things, there's going to be a cost somewhere else, and I just want to have everybody be able to know where that cost shift is going to come from. The automobile rental license program, I will speak to Mr. Cooper and Mr. Conti to just give me some more insight. I have not pulled that Chapter 140 yet. I will pull Chapter 140, but anything additional thought process that you want to give me, what you were looking at there, would be greatly appreciated. Thank you. And hawkers and peddlers. Besides, we do the snow stuff, that's coming up too. But the hawkers and peddlers, I have been looking at that, and I realized after speaking to a couple of people, I did speak to Mr. DeLisio, I did speak to, actually, I do want to point out, one of the residents did speak to me. I had a little concern too. He said, hey, listen, it sounds like this was a situational thing. I have to tell you, I'll be honest, when I first heard everybody say, I thought it was a situational thing. So I went to the chief of police, and I said, you know, how many of these things have you had in the last 5 years? And he was extremely happy that you all are concerned about this, because he's very concerned about this. And he's in the process of getting me data on this, to exactly the problems that he has on this. I'm just going to read what he said. Please understand this is a continuous problem for our citizens. It's a relentless nuisance. We receive complaints from citizens about these door-to-door salespeople. In fact, we had to arrest one of these door-to-door salespeople this past year because of disorderly conduct. So I just want to tell you, I am following. See that? You know, you do your research and you find things out. So I am working with the chief right now. We are going to get data. However, to get this thing, because I want to be able to present that data, I think the citizens did bring up some reasonable thoughts, like, why are we doing this, and just thought it was just some knee-jerk reaction. It's absolutely not, and I will have the facts and figures. However, what really is outstanding in this, it's my understanding, is we're waiting for a definition of a B and C peddler. Is that my understanding? So I also understand that Lauren Galvin was involved in this, so I'm going to speak with Lauren Galvin and see if she did come up with any language. Once I get that language, I'll put it in here. If not, I actually found some language that maybe you might be interested in. So if I can't get it from Lauren, I'll come up with something myself, and hopefully we'll be able to bring this out shortly. I think that is, and that's it. So unless, does anybody have any comments? And then, of course, there is one, oh, sorry, it's not mine. Thank you. So that ends my information, if you would, on ordinance, elections, and legislative matters committee, and I'm going to ask for an adjournment at
7:50.
Thank you. 7:50. It looks like 50.
On the digital, it's 7:50.
Got it. Okay, so 7:50. I'd like to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we have adjourned at 7:50. That ends ordinance, elections, and legislative matters committee. Thank you.
And I'd like to call the City Property and Claims Committee to order at 7:49. The members of my committee are myself, Councilor Blair, and Councilor Holmes. I have three motions tonight. I entertain a motion to transfer $3,067.96 from account 1124100-178-300 citywide reserve fund for transfer to account 1610100-558330 library-copiers regarding funds to purchase a replacement for the main copier in the library that is beyond repair.
Second.
Thank you. Any comments or questions? Okay, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, that motion passes. I entertain a motion in accordance with Section 1-12 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro to accept the donation to the Health Department of $250 in Stop and Shop food gift cards from an anonymous donor.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions, concerns? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. That motion passes. I entertain a motion to accept the donation of real estate parcels located off Slater Street, more specifically as shown on A&R plan of land recorded at the Bristol County Registry of Deeds, Book 510, page 64, Assessors Plat number 136A, Lot number 1, containing a land mass of 27.06 acres. Assessors Plat number 136A, Lot number 2, containing a land mass of 8.48 acres, and Assessors Plat number 213, Lot number 2, containing a land mass of 27.17 acres. They are to be placed under the stewardship of the Conservation Commission for the purpose of conservation of natural resources and passive recreation, including but not limited to the conservation of species listed pursuant to the Massachusetts Endangered Species Act. Thank you. I think this is pretty self-explanatory, and we all did get some information from our Director of Planning and Development, Gary Arasian, and one of the things that they had to have was to have paid the taxes in full. That has been done. Gary spoke about that last week. And this is mostly a wetland area. Any?
I did have a question.
Yes, sure.
So is this where we were trying to get an easement, though, like to get access to land?
This is, no. This is not the easement one. The easement one, oh, no, wait a minute.
Yes, sir.
This is the easement one. That's what I
So
got
they're gonna
confused
make
on.
it so we
They're
have
going to
a-
make it, yeah. They'll make one now, and then when they start to build out, they're going to come from a different direction. The easement will come somewhere else.
Okay.
But that will be written into it. Any other questions or concerns? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. That motion passes. Okay, I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you. And we will adjourn at,
7:53.
thank you, at 7:53. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We are adjourned.
I'd like to call the License Committee meeting at 7:53. I have two items from the docket of February 6, 2018. I entertain a motion to approve the application for renewal 2018 scrap metal recycler junk dealer license for Polarized New England Company LLC, DBA Schnitzer Northeast, 136 Bacon Street, South Attleboro, Mass.
Second.
They're in good standing. I really don't have any comments. Does anybody have any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Let's see. I entertain a motion to approve the application for renewal 2018 Class 2 license from B&C Auto Service, Robert J. Pedro, DBA B&C Auto Service, located at 21 South Ave, Attleboro, Mass., for 5 customer parking spaces and 5 display spaces.
Second.
Thank you. We had contacted them. They hadn't renewed their license, so we had contacted them asking them why, if they plan on moving forward. They never responded. I went down there and spoke to one of the owners, part owner. He had stated they didn't intend on selling cars. Apparently they changed their mind because they came down and filled out an application the next day. Went down there, counted cars, talked to them. They have very few cars there. They don't even have the amount they're applying for. So I don't see any issue unless anybody has any questions or comments. All those in favor?
Aye.
That's all the business I have. I move to adjourn the License Committee at 7:55. Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
I call the Budget and Appropriations Committee to order at 7:55. I have 3 pieces of business to bring in front of us tonight. First, I entertain a motion to approve the request of the mayor in accordance with Chapter 1, Section 12 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro to allow the library to expend approximately $5,000 of any future grant amendments from the ALSC, Association for Library Services, to children-funded grant strengthening communities.
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Conti. This is a fun one, and I've been working with Amy Ringlinger at the library. So we're one of 14 communities in Massachusetts to get this grant. There's going to be some programs, and I'll get a list by next week exactly what those programs are. But it's fantastic to be one of 14, so I think this is a great cause, and I highly support this. Any other discussion, questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. Motion passes. Thank you. Let's see. This one's a little lengthy, so bear with me. From the supplemental docket of January 2nd, 2018, I entertain a motion to rescind the vote number 2 from the meeting of June 20th, 2017, voted on roll call, 11 yeas, 0 nays, to repeal Attleboro Special Act, an act increasing the expenditure limit on revolving funds in the city of Attleboro.
Second.
Thank you. Council Cooper, procedurally here.
I saw that.
I'll just read the
First one,
yeah, Council Conti, do you mind rescinding the second?
I will.
Thank you. I think it was just a Scribner's error here. So from the supplemental docket of January 2nd, 2018, I entertain a motion to petition the general court to enact. Okay. So, told you it was a little lengthy. All right. So the motion essentially, and we'll go through it again. The backdrop on this is prior to the Municipal Modernization Act, we, the City of Attleboro, had petitioned the Court of Massachusetts to essentially put limits on the revolving funds. Now with the Massachusetts Municipal Act, Municipal Modernization Act, which came out last year, where we were able to set our own revolving limits on our own revolving funds, we no longer need this. However, where we petition the general court to participate in this program, we now have to rescind it. It's just housekeeping, but it's a little bit of a ponderous motion, so I will start the motion again, if you don't mind, Mr. Conti. I entertain a motion to rescind the vote number 2 from the meeting of June 20th, 2017, voted on a roll call vote, 11 yeas, 0 nays, to repeal Attleboro Special Act, an act increasing the expenditure limits on revolving funds in the city of Attleboro. And that motion then further reads, and this was what we're repealing. So I entertain a motion to petition the general court to enact the following legislation to repeal an act increasing.
Right, Jay, I think you gotta do both. So I think you gotta do the first one, entertain a motion to rescind the vote.
We have to rescind the vote.
And the second one.
I have to second your motion.
Okay, so do I have a second on that first piece of it?
I second the motion.
Thank you, Councilor Conti. Thank you all for your patience. This is not exactly a run-of-the-mill situation. Any questions or comments on the diatribe I just gave? All right, seeing none. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. Motion passes. All right. I entertain, also from the supplemental docket of January 2nd, 2018, I entertain a motion to petition the general court to enact the following legislation to repeal an act increasing the expenditure limit on revolving funds in the city of Attleboro, sections 1-2 of chapter 116 of the Acts of 2006, which the legislature may vary in form and substance with the scope of the general public objectives of this petition. An act to repeal an act increasing the expenditure limit on revolving funds in the city of Attleboro, chapter 116 of the Acts of 2006, be it enacted by the Senate and House of Representatives in the General Court assembled and by the authority of the same as follows. Section 1. An act increasing the expenditure limit on revolving funds in the city of Attleboro, section 1-2 of chapter 116 of the Acts of 2006 is hereby repealed. Section 2. This act shall take effect upon its passage.
Second.
All right. You answered at the same time. I'm just going to go with Councilor Conti for continuity. But you'll have an opportunity for a second coming up.
Continuity.
It's continuity right here. Again, I'm not going to repeat the diatribe. Any other questions, concerns on this? Councilor Conti.
Yeah, this is really very positive for the city of Attleboro because we still, as a municipal council, will need to set the limits on revolving accounts every year. But this takes the cap off. And,
Right.
what it is the state pulling its fingers out of our business, which is very helpful. In the last term, DPW Chief Lance Hill released a study saying that he needed $2.7 million a year just to keep our roads as bad as they are in the city of Attleboro. And immediately I thought revolving a fund. Couldn't figure out where the money was going to come from, but I was thinking if there was ever an opportunity where money was flowing in, that maybe that revolving account would be perfect for the DPW. But there's also other departments that would benefit from a large revolving account, including water and wastewater. I mean, when we were talking to Paul Kennedy 2 weeks ago, he dropped a bomb that if he had $1 million a year just to repair the sewer system, it would take him 100 years, and those are his words, to fix the system.
Right.
So this is a golden opportunity for the city of Attleboro to be able to set up funds that are coming in perhaps from new sources to be dedicated to a specific thing, like the animal shelter, like other things that we've done in the past. Police cars are another one that's a very big one. So this is a very positive thing, and I highly encourage its passage, and that completes my comments.
Thank you for your comments. Any other comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. Motion passes. I have two last motions, which are all of the same motion. So, all right. From the docket of February 6, 2018, I entertain a motion to transfer $95,000 from account 112410005783000 Citywide Reserve Fund for transfer to account 112410005999000 Citywide other financing uses to provide project contingency funding for the 10-mile cantilevered walkway.
Second.
All right, thank you, Councilor Conti. I'm just going to make my comments now because it's relative to both motions. First of all, I want to recognize our city planner, Gary Rajan. He's had personal issues that he's been tending with. He's been sick himself, but yet doesn't stop him from reaching out to me because he knew I had a question. I sent him an email the other day, responded right away. So this essentially is to provide a contingency for the cantilevered walkway project. Generally, with a project of this nature, you're going to have 10% contingency in place. Well, they want to get going in February with this. This is actually only going to be a 7% contingency. And for those of us who are thinking, well, that's kind of low, especially if it's usually 10, we've seen contingencies go as high as 20, 30%. The higher the contingency, the less faith we have in the engineer and the project. That's why we have such a high contingency. Gary has great faith in this project, doesn't feel we're going to need the contingency. I think Gary's built up a pretty solid reputation in terms of asking and what he needs, presenting what is best for the city. So I would take his lead in this. And of course, with any other contingency, it's important to note that anything that's not used will come back to the city. So best case scenario, we don't use any of it, and it all comes back. more realistic situations, we're probably going to end up using some of it. Could be for police details, could be for anything else that might come up. Now, the other thing this does is it gives us a little bit of cushion and a little bit of, well, cushion's good, in case we have a change order halfway through. To get a change order on any project, as we know, you have to come down in front of us. We have to go through the whole process of getting the appropriations. The contingency is going to help with that. Now, Gary doesn't suspect that there will be change orders, but we all know in any sort of project, things happen that we don't see. So this just gives us that cushion that we need to make sure that this project, which is slated to get going in February, stays on track. Councilor Clovis.
Yes, can you just help explain why the contingency wasn't planned in to start with, or was it in that, that's exactly, but?
Yeah, it's a little complicated, so, and I'll just read right from Gary's letter, because his words are going to be much more articulate than mine. So as you know, the City of Attleboro has been awarded $1.5 million in grant funds through Gateway City Parks program towards the Judith H. Robbins Park and the 10-mile cantilevered walkway project as we continue our downtown revitalization endeavors. A portion of the grant funds, $300,000, were utilized to support the Attleboro redevelopment's purchase of the real estate along the 10-mile river as part of the Riverfront Drive construction project. The bulk of the grant funds, along with $100,000 of the CDBG, were allocated to the design and construction of the 10-mile river cantilevered walkway project that connects the Robbins Park at Wall Street with the Balfour Riverwalk Park at County Street. When we bid the project, the lowest responsive bid was 1.3, having approximately $300,000 budget shortfall. Gary contacted the state early December 2017, requested additional grant funds. Within a day or two, the Commonwealth responded with the award of an additional $200,000 in grant funds, bringing the total Gateway City Parks Program grant to $1.7 million. The balance of the shortfall is to be covered by an additional $100,000 of the city's block fund. So we needed to get all those pieces together, find out what the final cost was going to be before we knew what the contingency needed to be.
Okay,
So,
makes sense.
All right. Good question. Councilor Conti.
So, Chairman, can you tell me why we're taking it out of reserve fund for transfer, putting it into citywide other financing uses? We can take it out of citywide other financing uses to put it in City Parks program.
It's accounting purposes for my understanding, and I can get a further clarification from Gary, but my understanding, it's accounting purposes for these funds for the grant to be executed properly.
So I've seen cases in the past when money was transferred, once it gets into that Gateway Cities Park program, it can't be pulled back out to be
The
put into-
contingency can.
The contingency
The contingency can. So this is a contingency giving us that little extra leeway if we need it. So if we don't need it, and where it's coming from city funds and not grant, it can then be transferred back if we don't use it.
Thank you.
No, thank you. Any other questions or concerns on that? All right, seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, none, motion passes. Finally, I entertain a motion to transfer $95,000 from 1124100-599000 citywide other financing uses to account 230H4-499000 Gateway City Parks Program, other financing sources to provide project contingency funding for the 10-mile cantilevered walkway.
Second.
All right, Councilor Cobus, thank you. Ditto. So any other questions, comments on this? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
I do have one thing, if I may. Before we adjourn, I circulated to the committee members a slideshow.
Okay.
You want to talk about that tonight, or you want to talk about that next week?
I'm not at a point where I want to discuss that quite yet. I'm waiting to have a meeting with Mayor Haro early February, and at that point, I'll be in a better situation to speak of it.
Excellent, thank
All
you.
right? Thank you. I would, again, entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
And we are adjourned at 8:09.
Anyone want to take a break before
Go.
I do, looking at you, you'd be like, no, don't. I call the committee meeting for transportation and traffic to order at 8:09. Reminder, the members of my committee are Councilor Conti and Councilor Reynolds. I have one piece of business to discuss with everyone tonight. I entertain a motion to adopt the following ordinance relative to prohibited on certain streets, be it ordained by the Municipal Council of the City of Attleboro as follows. That Section 10-5.2A, prohibited on certain streets, Chapter 10, motor vehicles and parking of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro be hereby amended as follows. Insert A, Beagle Club Road, easterly side from 20 feet northerly of West Street to the Water Department Emergency Equipment Access Gate. Also see Section 10-5.15, seasonally prohibited on certain streets. B, Beagle Club Road, westerly side from the Water Department Emergency Equipment Access Gate southerly for a distance of 100 feet. Also see Section 10-5.15, seasonally prohibited on certain streets. 2, insert the following new section, 10-5.15, Section 10-5.15, seasonally prohibited on certain streets. Parking upon the following streets or highway or parts thereof is hereby prohibited during the dates described herein. Beagle Club Road, both sides of the entire street from May 15th through and including September 15th of each year. I can't get a second from my committee to even have the discussion. Awesome. I call for an adjournment of the Traffic and Transportation Committee at 8:11.
Second?
Thanks for that. 8:11, we are adjourned. All those in favor?
Aye.
Great, all those are, we are adjourned.
I call to order the Zoning and Land Use Committee at 8:11. Two items. I don't have any motions to bring forward today, but I do have 2 items to discuss. And the first one is a discussion with, I had a couple questions for Councilor Hall regarding the motion, the first motion that's in our packet regarding changing some of the wording from, to change the zoning for RMDs from requiring it to be, the special permit to be approved by the municipal council to be approved by the zoning board. Last we left that, we had a public hearing on December 12th to discuss it. The public hearing was closed, but as part of that discussion, Councilor Conti was looking to get some clarification from the city solicitor regarding whether it's okay for us, the differences between adjudication and legislation and that discussion. And as the person that is the former chair of the Zoning and Land Use Committee, have we had that conversation with the solicitor and had that discussion?
What I can tell you is that what I thought we were waiting on is a determination or recommendation from the planning board.
We are still waiting.
Gotcha.
That was my second
Gotcha.
question is, have we received that yet? I haven't seen anything, but I wanted to clarify that with you.
Correct. So that we're waiting on. That's going to make a big difference too. I think in terms of that, there is some documentation I believe I sent you prior to you even becoming a counselor that talked a little bit about from Gary Erasian, the number of special permits that. Okay, you got that. So that's some background information when that comes up. In terms of legislation versus adjudication, no, I had not talked to the solicitor about that. So that might be something you still want to discuss with her in terms of that. I did actually have a PowerPoint slide from municipal government that talked about the difference and actually gave some cases that showed the difference between adjudication and legislation. I'd be happy to have you, take a look at that, but I think your best bet is to go to the solicitor.
Sounds good. Okay. I just wanted to check on the status of where we were with that motion.
I think that's where we are.
Any other discussions on that before I move on? Okay. And the second item I wanted to discuss was the meeting that was held last night. It was a special meeting initially scheduled so that we could hear from the city planner. But something came up and he wasn't able to be there, but we did conduct a meeting with the intent of developing a strategy for moving forward with writing and updating the marijuana ordinances. And so this was a meeting to discuss that, to discuss the strategy for moving forward for our committee. It was expected to be a longer meeting with Gary there, but because it was publicly announced, I figured it would make sense to cancel it when we got word that he couldn't be there. So we discussed that strategy. We also sort of touched base to find out that, to make sure that we were all sort of on the same sheet of music, and discussed what we were aware of as far as public communications, what laws were available, so that we were all starting from the same understanding of what information was out there. And I've sent around minutes from that meeting, and it has information on the information that we currently understand is being available, and the current timeline from the state with how they're moving forward. And then we moved forward to discuss a strategy for how we intended to move forward with the ordinances, the RMD discussion. And so our intent is to review and revise zoning ordinances for consistency, specifically as applied to measuring distances. So there's some clarification that needs to be made there. The second item we wanted to do is develop and propose incremental RMD ordinance changes as needed. And these are small changes. There's a couple variances that have been that will potentially need to be requested, and we just wanted to relook at the RMD ordinances and make sure that they make sense based on some of the license requests that are, or the requests that we anticipate to come in. And then finally, we intend to draft recreational marijuana ordinances in an expedited but safe manner, such that the ordinance is voted out of committee. Our goal is to vote it out of committee by roughly April 1st, which aligns with the CCC in their date that they plan to start accepting applications. Now, this is a self-imposed deadline, but I thought it was good to try to set a target date. But it's, like I said, it's self-imposed. And then our goal is to, provided that ordinance is approved, to have the moratorium lifted by June 1st, which is based on the date the CCC intends to start approving applications. So again, it's self-imposed goals for us, but our intent is to try to not have applicants waiting on us and waiting on ordinances, if possible. And so we then continued and talked about how we intended to actually do that and achieve those sort of goals, because it is a little bit of an aggressive time frame. In what we came up with is we intend to hold weekly committee meetings on Monday evenings at 7 p.m. to discuss the goals outlined above. All the other normal committee business will occur during our regular committee meetings on Tuesday nights, as usual, but I expect these meetings to be long. They'll be obviously open to the public, but I intend to have a projector and it be a lot of going through and reviewing the ordinances and talking about the details of it. So that's how we intend to move forward. We'll report back to the full council during the committee reports every other week as part of the full council meetings. And then we'll work on our intent is to work on the incremental RMD ordinance changes at the same time as developing the recreational ordinances. So I think those can happen in parallel. And then we roughly outline our next 3 meetings as January 29th. We hope to hear from the city planner. I have not reached out to him, so provided he's available. February 5th, we hope to potentially hear from the city solicitor. And then at some point in the future, also sitting down and hearing from the chief of police and talking about that. And so, in addition to coming up with that rough operational plan to meet those strategic goals that we came up with, we also sort of had a fairly frank discussion on some of our concerns and where things that we should collectively be considering. And some of those that came up were access to the product, who can use it, how do we limit those things, and we'll have to definitely communicate and talk to the chief of police about that and get some guidance there. Other concerns, one was that Attleboro will become a comparatively lax community in the region with regards to marijuana restrictions, and as a result, people from more restrictive surrounding communities will come to Attleboro solely for marijuana, but without respecting our community. That's definitely a concern, and so we'll bear that in mind. Another concern was regarding the initial spike in tax revenue from marijuana during the first couple of years, but as sales equalize and costs decline, that tax income may decline and force difficult budgetary decisions. This was based on studies from Colorado, and I believe Councilor Conti will provide some of that data for us. And then the last one that we discussed was social consumption establishments are not covered by the RMD regulations and present a new set of challenges for us to address in these ordinances, so that those will be things that we'll need to consider that haven't necessarily been considered before. So that was it was a little over an hour long meeting, but that was a rough rundown of what we discussed. Does anyone want to add to anything I might have missed?
I don't know that you missed anything, but no, that's good. And I think that your minutes and the recap was right where it needs to be. There's a lot of heavy lifting that's going to go into this, and I think the way you're approaching it, separating it, kind of compartmentalizing it with the appropriate department heads, I have no doubt we'll get this done in the time frame that you've set forth. So just thank you for diving head first and really jumping in. So nice job.
Thank you.
Todd, can I ask you again what you were discussing about lax regulations? What was that you were saying?
So I'll read it one more time and then we'll talk about it. So the concern is that, oh, you have a copy of it. Sorry.
I don't think, I don't know. Oh, here it is. Good, great, thank you. Okay.
So the concern is that Attleboro will become comparatively lax, a lax community with regards to marijuana compared to some of the surrounding communities.
Who said that? Who suggested that?
That largely came from Councilor Hall.
That's, and I can say what I said.
Yeah, okay.
So the concern is that if people come to Attleboro from surrounding communities because they have lax, or because we have more lax restrictions on marijuana than.
But we don't have them yet, right? We don't even have our restrictions that we're putting into.
The concern is as we develop this ordinance, we want to develop it in such a manner that
they won't be lax, correct? I mean, I guess that's what I'm asking.
May I speak what I said?
What's the question?
Well, I guess my question is, if I'm hearing you right, and I'm not reading this, I'm trying to hear you correctly, that there's a concern that Attleboro would have lax regulations, and my feeling is that with all the work that you're doing or what you're talking about, they're not going to be lax. Am I hearing something wrong? Is what I guess I'm asking.
No, and so by listing out this concern and listing that we're concerned about potentially having lax restrictions, I think we'll just bear that in mind.
May I? Maybe I was miscommunicated or misrepresented. I feel my concern was not that we were going to have lax regulations, but we're going to be one of the only cities in the area that's going to allow this here. Mm-hmm. And so my concern is that we're going to be inundated with a lot of, business coming here, as opposed to going anywhere else, because we're
first.
We're open.
We're first. So it's not that they're lax,
right.
But we're first and no one else has, and we don't know how they're going to turn out.
Exactly. So that was my concern.
My minutes were probably.
That's okay.
I probably shouldn't have used the word lax in the minutes, but
I just wanted to clarify for me, because I want the people listening.
Yes.
That I think that everybody here wants to have the regulations, but how we put them in is important, and to know that they're going to be fair but strict. We want people to pass certain rules. So.
And that was my fault with the minutes I put in there.
Thank you so much.
Councilor Delacio.
We talked about a lot of things last night. It was more of a brainstorming session. I don't know that we've necessarily started really putting the teeth into this yet. When we were talking about the lax regulations, it was as it related to the moratorium and what happened if we didn't have it and people could come in before we have it. That's why we wanted to try to stay as close to lockstep with the state regulations and the state deadlines as they come, with us setting that aggressive goal. And the other piece of that, as we were talking, as Council Hall said, so many of our neighboring communities that we're often compared to have banned it outright.
Right.
So we're one of the few that are listening to the will of the voter, you know, and I know looking around the horseshoe, not all of us agree with it necessarily, but we're listening to what the will of the voter was. And that's really what this was. And again, I want to compliment the chairperson on really pulling this together last night in the way you did and navigating. Really, we're starting from scratch on this. So kudos to you in the way you've approached it and bringing all this information back. I think it's critical because we have 11 opinions, 11 different ways how we want to approach it. So thank you.
Thank you.
No, I just wanted to thank you for having this. It's a great, great to have several minds looking at this. It really is, I think, and to have the opportunity to do this. I think that the people that did the RMD did an excellent job, and I'll say that over and over again. We all try to work on it one night. You know, I remember drinking coffee, sending out for coffee at midnight, for goodness sakes. So we did the best we could, and that's part of it is we did recognize some conflicts. We're going to fix those conflicts, and we're going to approach this. And I do want to say that I do like the chairperson's comment, because one of the things I said over and over again when we talked about things was safety. Public safety is going to be paramount in anything that we do, and I kept saying that for the RMD, so I appreciate that you have repeated that again, and that I think everybody, you know, that's listening needs to understand that.
Absolutely.
And my last comment is that all of you, I'm really thankful to see that you're trying to fall in line with where the state is going, because I think it makes the most sense, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Councilor Holmes?
Yes, you're definitely very organized, and this is great. We're really lucky to have you. We really are. Now, I have a question. So I understand that the April 1st is the time frame that they will be accepting applications. Do you know if there's any way to find out if people are, how many are they're thinking that are going to come forward? I mean, I don't know, like, we're doing this and we're thinking we're going to be flooded, or we're not, or we...
I'm not familiar with that. I'm basing it on what the CCC is saying. But we can look into that. Councilor Dolan?
Did you, at your meeting, which I intend on being at the next one, did you have any type of handout of, I know Councilor Conti had a list previous when we had this discussion about rules that are already set in place. Did you hand that out at your meeting last night?
We did not. This was more of a brainstorming and strategy discussion.
Right, okay. And so will you be using that as like a guideline type? Like,
yes, we intend to review that, and in the minutes I sent out, there's links to all of those documents.
okay.
Councilor?
Just to, I can clarify, it's not, it is a guide, but the list that Mr. Conti had is talking about local control, which is a portion of the ordinance or the regulation for the Cannabis Control Committee. It's not a, you know, a guidebook that says do this, do this, do this, although it does have a lot of guidance in it. But it is a section that speaks specifically about what local control can do and has to do. And so when I say have to do, we have to vote each one of these things in order for it to be adopted in Attleboro. And it's something to really take a look at if you're going to sit on this committee, because this is how we can restrict things. Well, I shouldn't say restrict. I don't want to use. This is how we can sort of see how we want to do business here in Attleboro. One, for instance, would be a percentage of the alcohol establishments. You could limit it to a percentage of the number of alcohol licenses. That has to be adopted. We have to say, I want to make a motion, you know, whatever. So there's a whole litany. If I'm speaking correctly, sorry. And I'm done. Sorry.
Councilor Conti?
If I could have the floor, Title 15, Chapter 94, Section 3, local option for...
I'm sorry, can you say that one more time, please?
It's Title 15, Chapter 94,
G.
Section 3, local option. And I gave a copy of the option to the chairman today, and he will distribute it to all councilors, because
Okay.
eventually everybody's going to want to read what this is about. The Cannabis Control Commission has step-by-step laid down what you can and cannot do, all the way down to the end when it tells you, take all this to the city solicitor and have them draft an ordinance. That's exactly what that 6 pages of local option does. It tells you that you can't prevent a recreational marijuana facility from being next to a medical marijuana facility, for example. It says you can't do that. If a recreational marijuana facility wants to go into right next to a medical marijuana facility, you have to let them. So it's that specific as it goes down through the steps. And last night, it was clear that there's 2 ways that this committee could approach this ordinance. One is to take an ordinance such as Springfield and look at what Springfield is banning all over the place and decide to ban or not to ban as you go through the Springfield ordinance. The other way is to take the local option 3, section 3 local option, and go through that step by step by step by step and create an ordinance that fits Attleboro. So the committee is still in the formation stage of figuring out how they want to proceed down the road to create to craft the ordinance. Am I out of line in what I said? I think
It's valid.
I think I'm on track there, and that I'll surrender the floor.
And that's the intent of the committee in conducting these meetings, is to be able to have those discussions, those lengthy discussions, collectively as a committee. President Cooper.
So I think it's important, though, that we note, again, Councilor Hall's comments in that each of the local options must be adopted by the council individually. You can pick and choose and select. So just remember that as we're going through this. If there's one that we don't want to, we want to do that particular option differently, we can, as long as it doesn't violate the regulations of the Cannabis Control Commission. So you don't have to do it by each of the options way. You can do it a different way if you don't violate the regulations. And the regulations are draft right now. I read them, 98-ish pages. When they came out in draft form from what we currently have, they didn't change much. So if people wanted to start reading them, it's a good read. The 94 pages, you'll see some consistency and you'll see some inconsistency between the RMDs now.
And that's exactly what I was referring to. So if you had this list, I understand, individually, but we can tweak what would be right for Attleboro. So we're using it almost as a guide per se, right? That's what I was trying to get at. Did you have that there, and did you discuss? I understand it's only the first meeting, and I'd like to be at the rest. But that's what I was asking, because I know Council Conti had that similar list or the exact list, so we can go through it as a group and say, this one's not strict enough, this one's too strict, can we do this? That's what my question was.
Great point. That was not the intent of the meeting last night.
Right, I do understand it was the first one, so.
Strategic, our strategy moving forward and operationally, how
Yep,
we intend to
I got it, thank
meet
you.
those goals.
And fantastic job, ditto, what everybody said.
Any other comments? Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The Zoning and Land Use Committee is adjourned at 8:33.
God, I was part of that.
Canceled this evening?
I'd like to call the Capital Improvements and City Development Committee to order at 8:33. It'll be very quick. The Capital Improvements Program is coming out the second week of February, and I have set a preliminary schedule, Councilor Hall and Councilor Dolan, for the Saturdays in March. I'm going to try to do it in this manner. March 3rd, to go to the Sanford Street parking lot and the Academy building, which is right next to it. On March 10th, to go to the fire department, and then the recreation department, which is right next to it. And then on March 17th, go to the library and go to the police department. And then on March 24th, go to Parks and Forestry. And I put the school in there because there's several projects in the school, but there's too many of the projects that even if we went to school, we won't be able to see what they're going to be working on. So I'm going to try to get the school down to a short list. And then on March 31st, we'll go to the DPW and we'll do water and wastewater. That's a very aggressive schedule. And the reason why I did it this way is that all of our meetings out on the field have to be conducted as public meetings. We cannot deliberate during those visits, but we can ask questions and we can talk about what we're looking at, and we can't talk about whether or not we like it or don't like it, or are going to vote for it or vote against it, but we can ask a lot of background questions. What I was thinking is that we would restrict it to mornings or afternoons, whichever you prefer. I could do either, but if we could do, like, for example, Sanford Street and Academy Street in the morning, like at 9 o'clock and 10 o'clock, we'd be done at 11. It gets tricky with the public notice because the public has to be notified 48 hours in advance of where we're going to be and what our agenda is for that visit. So I'm going to give to Virginia, after I talk to all of these department heads, that we're going to set these schedules so that we can actually do 9 o'clock Sanford Street parking lot, 10 o'clock the Academy building, and then if we have further questions, we're going to take them offline later. But we'll just get there to visually see, limit it to 1 hour, visually see what's going on. Boom, 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 boom. This is truck 9, this is truck 8, this is truck 7, this is truck 6. Take pictures if you like. Then we can deliberate later. But just to get there and see what this stuff is very important. And I expect some of the members of the public, and all councilors will be invited to join us once, and I encourage you all to attend, because it's really educational to get out into the departments. Councilor Cooper?
So it's the fire department on Union Street, or are you going to both?
Union Street only, because I don't think there's anything over in South Attleboro.
The building.
Well, okay, well then we're going to do both.
Just ask the chief if he wants to show us the building.
Right.
And then it wasn't clear to me whether you are going to post with specific times for the public or not.
We are.
Okay, thank you.
What I was thinking was that I would do 9 o'clock and 10 o'clock, just as a first session and a second session in the morning on every Saturday in March, if that works for you.
Sure, I'm sure there'd be some that, but definitely.
You're
Saturdays
free.
are great.
You're free. If you can't make the meeting, if you can't make 9 o'clock at the police department, you're free to call the police chief and go there at any time.
Yeah.
He'll be happy to accommodate you. But this gives us a public format so that we can actually say the Capital Improvements and City Development Committee is going to the Sanford Street parking lot on 9 o'clock, March 3rd, to have a committee meeting on site. It just gives the public an opportunity to be there and say, I've been complaining about this forever. Well, let's hear it. That's what that's all about. Yes, Councilor.
And then on the 31st, it was DPW and who else?
Water, wastewater.
Oh.
That's an aggressive schedule.
When do you think, excuse me?
Yes, Councilor Hall.
When do you think you'd have this published? When did you say you might have?
Well, I'm going to make the calls this week.
Okay.
Just to line up, and I'll probably move some of these around depending on what's going on with the departments. But I hope to have this solid by Friday afternoon.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? On another subject, the Attleboro Redevelopment Authority is getting a lot of press, and I've been having a lot of conversations. And there's something that you need to know. The Municipal Council cannot forgive the Attleboro Redevelopment Authority debt. We cannot just write that off the books. There's no law that allows us to do that.
That's right.
We have given loans to the Attleboro Redevelopment Authority. A loan is with an expectation of repayment. That last comment is subject to interpretation. Even though legally you cannot forgive the loan, there's a question about whether or not those loans were ever expected to be repaid by former Mayor Robbins and the people that succeeded him. The second thing I want to tell you about the Attleboro Redevelopment Authority is that we can show, as a municipal council, if we can show that the debt has been satisfied in volunteer hours and investment returns to the city, then we can accept the volunteer hours and investments returned to the city as an equivalent of the debt due and forgive it based on the debt satisfied by the volunteer hours and investments. That is legally possible. To clarify what we might want to do going forward, I've invited the Attleboro Redevelopment Authority and asked them to put together a comprehensive presentation of everything that's happened in the Attleboro Redevelopment Authority since 2009 to 2018 and come to the council chambers at the end of the first half of this calendar year to make that presentation so that we can deal with this issue. Do either of you have any questions about the ARA?
I do.
Councilor Parika, I saw your hand first.
Thank you. So this has been an interesting topic and one I've, had multiple conversations with. It is not my recollection. So this has been, it was part of the mayor's inaugural speech and things like that. So it is not my recollection that this honorable body has requested repayment. So I'm not really sure at this time why we're even having this conversation.
We're having this conversation because it became a news item. And calls have come into my office from the members of the public, together with the media, asking what we're going to do about it. And frankly, I'm with you. I was not aware of any timetable that mandated us to take an action on any given date.
If I may.
Yes, you may. You have the floor.
So the letter that Councilor Cook wrote to the mayor and to the head of the ARA, I think was probably one of the best letters I've read ever, and I thought that was a pretty decent mic drop from our former president. I feel it would, having these discussions, even though it's a new, I don't agree with even having these conversations, even though it's a news story. I don't think it's a story at all, unless this honorable body went to Mr. Correa or to the ARA board and said, all right, we're calling our note. I don't understand why it has to even be a topic at this point in time.
That's a very good point. It's a very good point, Councilor. Councilor Blair.
I sat in that room, Richard, and you and others, right next door, and I was very vocal. And I pushed the bail ARA out, and it was a bailout. But we loaned them the money.
That's exactly right.
We loaned taxpayers money. So first of all, I don't think we should be discussing it now, but seeing you brought it up, I expect that we get repaid. Doesn't have to be tomorrow. It doesn't have to be 6 months from now. But somewhere along the line, there's got to be enough money going into the ARA from the sale of property or whatnot to pay the city back. We made a lot of hard votes in that closed door session, a lot of hard votes. And this coming from the ARA asking it to be forgiven is bullshit. Pardon me. But it should not be even brought up if forgiving that debt. We made the hard decisions. It was a vote of this council, and we should stick to it. End of my comment.
I'm next to you.
You're next to me.
Thank you.
I'm listening to you.
Thank you. That's good. I'm good to see this week. So, Mr. Conti, where did you get that information from that states that it can be repayable through volunteer time? Like, where did that information come
Came through
from?
the city solicitor.
And she actually said that.
She did, in not those terms, but in other terms. And we'll get a written decision.
I'd like a written decision.
All right, we'll put that, I'll make a note of that.
Thank you.
Councilor Reynolds.
So I wanted two things. One, I think I've heard that before somewhere, but I mean, that was a decision we could have made at that time in that private session, and we didn't make that decision. We made the other one. But I vaguely remember, and I'm going to have to look it up, but I am pretty sure that there was at one time here, and I think you might remember it too, Councilor Cooper, is President Cooper, when Mr. Correa came up here, and he said to us, and you're going to get paid because we got the money. We got the $800,000. We got paid, and your city's going to get it back. And to be honest with you, my assumption was at that moment in time that it had been paid back. So when it came out that we hadn't, it's not there, I have to admit, I was surprised. I thought we had been paid back at the time that he said it there at the podium. I really did. So this whole news thing that came out that it hasn't been paid and please let's forgive it is like a slap in the head. What do you mean? I remember you saying, you know, we're going to get paid. The city is going to get paid. So that is my recollection, and I think it's right. I think it's right, and so I'm along with.
Your recollection is pretty good.
They
actually promised to make a payment back.
Yes.
And they did one night in a silver platter with a check on a silver platter.
Exactly.
Right, so they did make a payment back of a portion of their debt. Councilor Cooper and then Councilor.
Sure. So a couple of things about what was said. First of all, if you solicit the solicitor, just make sure that you CC me. I don't recall getting a CC for an opinion on whether volunteer is.
I didn't ask for it.
Okay.
It just came to me.
Okay.
Right. I did not go to the city solicitor.
Okay. Let me remind you that it was $683,100 that was repaid to the city on a silver platter on or about June 29th, 2012. Let me also remind you that the city of Attleboro gave to the Attleboro Redevelopment Authority since 2009 approximately $1,881,066.57. That was provided to me today. I haven't had a chance, being sick, to call Mr. Correa. In fairness to him, he did reach out to me, and I will reach out to him. I understand that the Attleboro Redevelopment Authority today has $373,736. $300,000 of that is deposits from the New England Sports Village for parcel of land, which I will get into. They have a $17,000 audit pending, so that leaves them approximately $56,700.36. So to pay back $800,000 with $56,000 puts some transparency and fresh air and sunlight to Councilor Parika's comments. They have a sale pending of Roadway D. Roadway D is intended to close in July. As you all know, they've had multiple extensions for that parcel. $660,000 is the price for the 28.5 acres, and $160,000, approximately $160,000 for the 293,000 square feet, for a total of $820,000. Then and only then would they have the money to satisfy any of the debt that they owe to the city of Attleboro. They have paid money to us for projects, and I am of the opinion, and I agree with almost everything Councilor Blair said, that we should seek money when money is due, and we should have a reasonable repayment plan based on the cash available from the Attleboro Redevelopment Authority. So what do I mean by that, so that I'm crystal clear on the record? What I mean by that is if they get a windfall in July of $820,000, that they would come before this municipal body with another silver platter, with another check on it, to say, we know we owe you $800,000, but here's X thousand to satisfy the oldest of the two, perhaps, debts that we owe the city. And through our volunteerism and our investment in the city, we're asking you to forgive the interest that was part of the memorandum of understanding. Oh yeah, and P.S., we recognize that we already loaned, or we already gave you $1 million of taxpayer money. So I am in no position to support. And this issue, and it's a different place and time, I recognize that, but this issue, when we were giving this money to the Attleboro Redevelopment Authority in that room, was the largest issue my phone has ever rung about in my tenure as first a volunteer and then an elected official in the city of Attleboro. Never did my phone ring so much as the fact that we were even considering loaning money to the Attleboro Redevelopment Authority. And that concludes my comments.
So, Councilor Cooper, I will need a photocopy of...
I just got this today, so I will get this to you.
I need a photocopy of that for my minutes.
I will get it to all of you.
For my minutes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Delizio.
So I have an interesting vantage point on this because I served 2 years on the ARA. I sat in on that closed session meeting as a member of the ARA. And I remember being torn about it back then. And President Cooper, if you remember, I called you about 3 hours before that meeting to talk about this, to find out exactly what was going on. I believe this latest one was, and someone correct me if I'm wrong, was for Leach Garner and for everything that was going on down there to be able to get the remediation and everything we need. I could be mistaken on that. It was always intended as a loan. I sat there as one of the lone members of the ARA who said, I fully expect to have this money paid back. It was necessary at the time. And that's what I feel, because this is needlessly being brought out. What's being lost in this is, one, the needs for the funds right then. It was a dire need. It was, we were looking, the ARA, when I say we in this situation, we were looking at going back into receivership on a couple different plots of land where we would have lost millions and millions of dollars. The city stepped up. They helped, because that's what the ARA in the city is. It's a partnership. And it was that partnership that pulled the ARA out of the red after well-documented unfortunate times. And the other thing that's getting lost in this is the absolute Herculean work that this ARA has done. And they have brought so many projects to this city. They've brought in grant money, which is their job and their role to do such, and they've done it beautifully. And there's been times that the ARA couldn't get done what needed to get done for legal or other statute reasons. Finberg Field, most notably. I'm concerned that this is a news item. I'm concerned that we're having this conversation at this point, because two things that are going to be overlooked are the two things I mentioned. One, it was necessary. That loan was born out of necessity to keep that running because of the partnership and the way that the ARA works. The ARA is there to get bonds, to get grants that the municipality can't get to remediate land, and a lot of times it results in a land swap back to the city, or it results in the selling of the property, to President Cooper's points about the money that's coming in. We have, the ARA has other projects that they're looking at that they're in the middle of. I don't think it's the intention of anyone on this table to sit there and say, I want this money now, because that's going to cripple them. The fact that this is a topic right now is unprofessional, and it's really scary, because we need to make sure that those projects get completed, and that we do not further damage a partnership between the ARA and the city, which has been flourishing for the last 7 or 8 years.
Well said, Jay.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Are there any other comments? Yes, Councilor Holmes.
I know this is going to sound weird, but I agree with everything everyone has said. I don't know how that's possible, but I think that this is a very, it's obviously people who have been here a long time have a very they're connected to it emotionally, but the partnership is huge, and I agree with what you just said, that there's a give and take here, and there's something that we were able to do, and we did, and they really have been able to be successful. So I don't want to see this going down a negative path. And so I think we have to be careful to make sure that all parties are feeling like they're getting what they need. So just being mindful of that.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Hall?
Sure, and I'm just going to take this, no emotion, but strictly from a process standpoint. So I'm hearing a lot of things and I want to, so the question is, how do we process this? What is our procedure that we do from a council standpoint? I mean, if we want to start looking at some mechanism, some payback mechanism as you discussed, I think that, sort of it's already on the table. Regardless of what we want to say, it's on the table. And I do think that a logical way of doing it would be to try to find out a mechanism that would satisfy both, but somebody needs to bring in some business that says this is the way we're going to proceed on that. So that's my only thing from a process standpoint, since it's already been discussed.
Councilor Curtis.
First of all, I very much agree with what Councilor Parika said about not understanding why this is being discussed today. But with that said, if your intent is to move forward with getting a presentation by the ARA chair, I would encourage you to also ask them to look at any potential negative impacts to either the ARA or the city for having that loan outstanding. Because if that will hinder our ability to float loans and whatnot, love to hear about those details, because I don't understand that potential impact. That concludes my statement.
Councilor Cooper, and then Councilor Deluzio.
Thank you. I think from my standpoint anyway, the position of the process would be to, again, we're not asking, we haven't, I don't think anybody's in the position to ask. With a bank account of about $56,000, there's not much there to ask for, nor have we to this point. I think having the next logical step to me, I proposed to the mayor tonight when I met with him that you, Rick Correa, and myself, Councilor Conti, Chairman Correa, and myself and the mayor get together to think about what the next step should be, including the presentation that we that Councilor Conti's already bringing forward. I think is the next logical process step.
Thank you.
All set?
Yes.
Councilor Deluzio?
The money was loaned in good faith. I feel as though it needs to be repaid in good faith. We're not asking for it all up front. We didn't even ask for it. And the second thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to ask through the chair for you to, and I'm formally requesting a monthly report from the ARA, as other boards in the city has, so we know what projects they're working on, what's the financial cost, so we can be in the loop on this stuff. I don't believe it was an issue, but now it's an issue, and I think that we need to...
Are you asking for a monthly financial report or a monthly status report?
Both.
Both.
One more question for you, Richard. I know you don't.
And this
I've
isn't
got
to...
Councilor Dolan before you, Peter.
And this isn't to micromanage or anything else, but I think that now that this is in the forefront, I think that we need to put the additional vision to it and have the line of sight to what's going on.
I've made note of your recommendation. Councilor Dolan.
I think, like everybody stated, nobody's really asked for this, and we know how much, how much money they have. So obviously we don't want to hurt them because it's a partnership. So I'm sure that there's something we can work out in the sense of without hurting them while getting the taxpayer money back. And as far as the presentation, I'd love to see it. I mean, I think everybody's aware of the amazing work that they do and what they've done to put money on the tax roll for the city, for everything they've done on a volunteer basis. So I'm just thinking there's got to be a way, if they're gonna pay us back, then we can monitor the situation and make it so we don't defunct them or hurt them in any way. That concludes my comments.
Councilor Blaze.
Richard, the money that they've been getting, non-refundable on that piece of property that ARA still owns up there, that's in the bank. That's not going anywhere if they don't pick it up. We've given them extension after extension after extension. I personally talked to somebody yesterday who's very much interested in that piece of land, and he can't get to first base. Somebody that's got the money willing to buy it. So there is money in the bank.
All set. Councilor Parriga.
Thank you. Again, I think we just need to, I'm quite certain that Jackie Romanicki is at home watching us right now, so is probably Rick Correa. I think that the Municipal Council has demonstrated time and time again how supportive we are and how grateful we are to them. That has been demonstrated by the $1 million that we gave them that we didn't ask to be paid back. I was not a counselor. I was, at the time, I was not part of the executive session meetings, but I most certainly was sitting in that audience when Mr. Cooper, the only way that money was going to be approved by this council to be given to the ARA is as long as there was a memorandum of understanding between the ARA and the Municipal Council. If that brilliance on his part to be able to add that to us giving them that money, the ARA wouldn't even be in business right now. It would have been gone. So I think that's very important. I don't want people to take away. I think we're all a little caught off guard by this topic. I think when I was sitting on the stage during the inauguration, and that's what I heard come out. It was kind of one of the first times I had heard it, and I thought it was a little shocking, but I don't want the ARA to think that we're not grateful for everything that we do. We've put our money where their mouth is and have supported them 100%. And I just think that maybe it's time for them to take it off the table for a little while, let everybody cool down, and then proceed as we normally would. Thank you.
Council Delizio. All set? Council Hall.
I just want to make one comment, because this came to mind when we talk about volunteer hours and committees. We have a lot of committees, and not downgrading. I know they do great work, and I echo what Vice President Parika said. They do great work, but we have a lot of boards and committees that do that do a lot of great work here for the city on volunteer time, and we're not trading off, their time and their effort. So, as much as I appreciate what they do, I would rather not hear that be part of the argument or the concern, if you would. I'd rather it just be sort of based on money. Loan was made, end of story, and then whatever they need the money for. Because I don't want it to cloud up other things that other committees and the wonderful work that they do too, and then we just have to have a discussion about that. Like, how come our planning board, I don't know. I'm just, like I said, I fully support what they do. I just think that maybe not where we want to go with part of the argument. Just me.
Thank you. Any other comments? Good, because I'd like to say something. I'm not disappointed that I brought this subject up for discussion tonight, because I do believe in fresh air and sunlight. And I like what I heard tonight. And I know the people in the city of Attleboro are going to be eager to watch what was said tonight, because they want to know how their councilors think. This is democracy at its finest. It does not need to be an issue of why we need to discuss it. If it's a news item, we're going to discuss it if it's in my committee, because I'm the committee chair. And if I want to discuss it, I'm bringing it out on the floor. So I will not apologize for bringing this subject up tonight, and I thank you all for your comments. I've heard them all. I've made note of the issues you're interested in, and they will become part of the permanent record. So thank you very much for participating. That concludes the business of the Capital Improvement and City Development Committee. I'll make a motion to adjourn at 9 o'clock.
Second.
Thank you. Motion's in order. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Motions passes, and the City Improvements and Development is closed.
Public Safety Emergency Management Committee is canceled this evening. I believe that's the last one.
No, there's a special committee on... Counselor Cooper, do we have an official ruling on the special committee on the council's rules of procedure? May we have a meeting?
It was called for at the last meeting, but it was omitted from the agenda.
Thank you.
So I'm going to be real quick. I'll call the Committee on Council's Rules of Procedure to order at 9 o'clock. Sitting on this committee is Councilor Kobus and Parika. Councilor Kobus and Parika, there's two documents that are out there, and I don't want you to be confused. One is this council manual, and the other is the Attleboro Council Rules of Procedure. This committee is only dealing with this document, the Rules of Procedure. I have gone through this document, and I have isolated key issues that we need to discuss. The key issues being Freedom of Information Act and texting. And another issue that has been brought to my attention is the Mullins rule on being able to sit, and whether or not we can have a local option. And in addition to that, there are several motions in the council floor, like electronic devices in council chambers and place and time of meeting and other issues that I've highlighted. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to consolidate this document with a highlighted edition that are the things that we need to address. And at the next council meeting, perhaps we can tick off one or two of them in an open discussion to see where we want to go. And hopefully we'll wrap it up by August. Yes, Council Perico.
Do you have any expectation that, being that some of these conversations could be potentially rather lengthy, on having alternate, instead of having it solely on committee nights on Tuesdays, having alternate meetings at other times for that?
It wasn't my plan to do that, because there's not that many things in the document that I think we need to address. If we looks like we're not going to meet our deadline, you're right. We're going to have to change the policy, yes.
So just to redirect as well, if there are things that I feel that are necessary to address, is this being that I am part of the committee, I could bring that forward?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And we'll accept input from the rest of the council as well, yes. Any other comments on the special committee of the council's rules and procedures? I call for an adjournment. Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Thank you. Motion's in order. All in favor? Aye. I declare the special committee on the council's rules and procedures adjourned at 9:03. Thank you and good night.
Sorry about that.